I'm Selena, and I am here to represent Pisces Ministry and talk a little bit about some different divination systems. So, what I want to talk about today are the runes, runic stones. So, this is not the Norse runes. This is the witches' runes. And the temple has their own system that we use. It's a combination of a few different systems and then some particular pieces that are for the temple. This system was created by Christopher Penzak, and we actually have a class. It's a one-off kind of class that's all about the temple's runic stones. And that's available for initiates, all initiates. I think it's a free class. And we also have a study group for the runic stones where we go through and talk about our experiences using them as a divination system. And there's also a calendar that's related to them. So I want to talk a little bit about that for you today. So the runic stones are basically it's a particular symbol set, essentially. And you can put them on any kind of stone. So they can be on actual stones, and you can choose different types of stones that have particular meaning for you. You can carve them into the stones. You can paint them on the stones, whatever works. I've used those little flat glass beads that you get from the craft store. Those work really well. Stones, I've made a set from stones that I've collected around my yard, particularly around a river. You can find some that are flat. You want them to be flat, so they'll land either face up or face down. The set I have with me right here was made on little wooden discs by Michael Usher, who's one of our lovely ministers in the temple. And these work really well, but you want them to have a blank side and a side with the symbol on them. So there are 28 different symbols in this set. 28 or 29, one of those. And they all encompass different meanings. So there are symbols that represent different times of the year. There are symbols that represent nature. There are symbols that represent human concepts. There are all different sorts of stones, and they have a variety of meaning, and they're all related. They have a planetary correlation. They tend to have a seasonal correlation. Like if you put them all out in the particular order that they go in, they tell the story of the human life cycle as well as the story of the year. But you can use them as you can put them all in a bag and draw one out, and then, glean whatever meaning you need from that particular stone that you've drawn, or draw three. And use them that way. But I like to use them as a throwing system. So you basically, if you're using a throwing system, you basically take your stones and you put them either in a bag. I like to use a cup or a dish. This is a lovely little dish that was recently given to me, and it works really well for this. And you just sort of shake them around, ask your question, connect to the spirit of whatever it is that you're communicating with. And I will say that the runes have their own consciousness, their own spirit as well. So you can connect with the spirit of the runes themselves. And then you just spill them out. And whichever ones are face up, like symbol up, that's part of your reading. If they're symbol down, they're just not part of the reading. So you can make interpretations based on where they land. Are two stones close to each other? Does that have a specific meaning? Are they moving away from each other? And maybe that has specific meaning. But it's very fluid in the way that you interpret the symbols on the runes and how they interrelate to each other. But you can also use the symbols themselves, and you can play with the cloth or whatever it is that you throw them on. So you can have you can take your cloth and divide it into 4, and you can use those 4 quadrants to represent maybe the 4 elements, or use it like the quadrants in an astrology chart. You can do all sorts of things with that. Maybe they represent different seasons of the year. And so the stones that land there maybe tell you what to expect in that particular season of the coming year. I like to take a cloth and divide it into 12 sections, and you can use those as um, either to as a year ahead kind of one for each month, or you can use them as the houses like you would in an astrology chart and use the meaning there to interpret with which stones land in those spaces. I also have had a lot of luck using the runes themselves as a backdrop for a reading. For example, I recently did a reading where I used the two rings, which is all about relationships. I put this symbol on an altar cloth, and I used it actually in combination with tarot cards, but you can throw the runes onto that and see where they land and do your interpretation that way. But I used it with tarot cards. So I was drawing on the energy of this rune to ask, how is this relationship going to unfold? What do they need to know about each other? And it was a really, really good sort of foundation for creating a tarot spread for that particular reading. And I've had a lot of good luck doing that with different stones. So if there's something really you want to have the influence of that rune in the reading, and you can use any other kind of divination system you want to, or you can just throw the runes onto that cloth and see what comes through for you. But the system is also a calendar, so it relates to the lunar calendar. So for every day of the month, there is a stone connected to it. And so the energy of that stone is influencing the energy of the day, or it's interrelating with the energy of that particular day. And it's really been fascinating after doing this for several years and following along each day with what rune is related to that particular day. It's really interesting to see how things unfold and how much the stones will come up. And that's part of our study group as well. We share the stone that is for that day, and people comment, on how, yes, this has definitely been true for me today, or things like that. So it's really interesting to sort of learn together how the system is working for other people. But you can also sort of plan around that. Like if you have to have a difficult conversation, maybe you don't want to do it on a day where the rune is the cross spears. I mean, unless you want to fight, and then go for it. But that's a really great way that you can use these, and you can use them. I like to inscribe the runes on candles for particular spells. There are runes for each of the Sabbats. So like this is Beltane. So when I'm doing Beltane Sabbats and things like that, I'll inscribe this on a candle to help connect to the energies of Beltane, right? And to help bring that into our ritual space as well. So there's so much that you can do. You can actually make bind runes with these symbols as well. You can put them together and create a sigil or a new symbol using the energies of several of these together. So this is just a really great system. And if you want to know more about it, as I said, for initiates, we have a whole runic stones class that you can use to explore these. You can explore the types of material that you use to make them. Maybe you want to use wood if you want to kind of make a set that is more in tune with fire or will. Maybe you want to use, sea glass or something like that, or shells if you want to really connect to the water element with your stones. I find that no matter what material you use, they will have, they sort of have their own energy and their own meaning, but it can add some nuance and different flavor to different rune sets that you might have. So I really enjoy working with this, and there have been times that I've added additional pieces to my rune set, or added particular runes to other bone sets or other throwing sets that I might be using. And I just had a lot of great luck using this system. So I hope that you explore the witches runes. There's all sorts of different witches rune sets out there. So find one that works for you and play with it. I hope this has been helpful and informative, and we will see you some more as the month continues. Blessed be.